Hey,
Hmm.
Dr. Rob.
Hello, Tammy. How are you?
I'm good, and I love that shirt on you. So,
Thank you. I like this shirt too.
so I'm going. We've got lots of questions, and the last few weeks we've run out of time. So I'm just going to get right to it. First question looks like from a male. I'm a recovering addict who is working to regain my partner's trust. We are enrolling in a recovery program that requires a polygraph test. I have read that there is a chance of false positive tests, which is giving me anxiety. What is your view on using the polygraph test as part of recovery? That's kind of interesting because, like, I haven't heard it as part of recovery. I've only heard it as part of disclosure. Have you heard of a different?
Well, the only time I've ever used a polygraph is in combination with a partner or a couple. When the partner, and this is when we do it, we have done it. It is something we do. And I want to explain to you guys why. If I had a drug problem and my boss or my spouse or anybody wanted to see if I was still using, they could just give me a simple urine test and they would know. And by the way, that would help hold me accountable because I know somebody's going to test me. Well, we can't do that when someone's lying about sex and intimacy and porn and what they've been lying, especially to a partner many times over time, where that partner thought they had the truth and then they didn't, and then they got more information. That kind of drip, drip, drip can leave partners over time feeling like, no matter what you do in therapy or whatever we talk about, I'm not going to believe you. And we believe that without trust, there is no relationship. So if it takes somebody polygraphing you to regain trust, I'm all about it because your goal is to regain your partner's trust. Now, false positives, not really. What will happen is, I'll tell you the truth. What really happens is most polygraphers get the real story. This is how polygraphs should go. You would do your inventory, your history, your disclosure, whatever all that is. You'd write it all up and talk about it with a therapist and all that. And then you would present it to your partner with somebody present and do that in a therapeutic setting. And then your partner would say, is there anything else on here that you know about that I don't? And then they're going to polygraph you too. Is everything that you said true? Is everything in your history on there? They can only polygraph you to one or two questions. And they're not going to polygraph you to every question your spouse has. They're going to polygraph you to, is this list of things true and everything that you know about or not? So what I find sometimes polygraphers become father confessors because all of a sudden someone realizes with a polygrapher in front of them, oh, there's a few more things I haven't said. And I'll often hear from a polygrapher like, well, he passed the test, but there's some stuff he said before that I don't think you know about. So it can go a whole variety of ways, but yes, I do think it's useful for long-term partnerships, like over 5 years, where the two of you, where the partners experience many, many lies over time, has no reason to begin to trust you at all, and really wants to regain trust.
Okay, thank you. Okay, could you talk about covert incest, and you may want to explain what that is, and enmeshment, and how it can contribute to the development of sex and love addiction?
Sure, and Tammy, though, I'm going to ask you to comment on Ken Adams and his book
Sure.
and stuff. And so what is almost universal to all of the male sex addicts I've worked with and all the female too is early abuse. And one of the most common forms of abuse that we see in sex addicts, especially male, is where one or the other parents became kind of like the child's best friend, or better yet, the child became the parent's best friend, where the parent was depending on the child to do well in order to feel good about themselves. I can only give you my own example. I'm going to give you lots of examples, but I give my own. When I did it well in school, I don't think it was good for my mom that I did well in school. It was good for her that she had a son who was doing so well. In other words, it was all about her feeling good about looking good to everyone I went to school with, but that had nothing to do with me. Like, son, I love you, you're getting good grades. No. It was more like, oh, well, everyone will admire us and like us if you're a good student. So my role was not out of child. My role was to please mom, to be there for mom, make sure mom was okay, to not get upset. Mom would talk to me about dad and their sex life and what they had going on. So even though it wasn't incest in the sense of being touched, it's a form of emotional incest when a parent's needs exceed the needs of their child. And that child, and sometimes this happens, your grandma dies and your mom kind of falls apart for a while and you're there for her, and that's fine. But we're talking about an extended period where that parent or those caregivers are so unavailable that the child concludes they have to take care of themselves, that they really don't have anyone to take care of them. And in any case, this mishmash of who am I, the person in charge, or am I the child? Is someone looking up to me or needing? There's this whole mess of what happens when we experience early enmeshment with a parent or covert incest, leads to a lot of confusion and fear about adult intimacy and adult relationships, because we certainly don't want to go back to what we had when we were growing up, which was probably scary and overwhelming. This is one of the reasons why sex addicts long to be close to their partners but run in the other direction, because early on we learned that being close might also be very scary. Does that help, Tam?
Yeah, that really does. And I put in, Dr. Ken Adams did a great podcast with Dr. Rob. And I put the link to the podcast series, Sex, Love, and Addiction. And you can find it on all the different platforms on, iTunes or Stitcher, Spotify, etc. On that link on sexandrelationshiphealing.com/podcast. But you can find the one with Dr. Adams, which does talk about this particular topic. He's written several books too, Silently Seduced and Overcoming Enmeshment, that many people find helpful if this is something they're struggling with or their loved one is.
And the spouse's least favorite title of Dr. Adams, Married to Mom.
Yes, when he's married to mom, yes. Okay. I found out accidentally huge charges on my credit card. My partner of 28 years has been in a relationship with a sex trade worker for over a year. We argued and he asked me to leave the marital home. He thought that he had a relationship and a future with her. She was living, oh my goodness, with her pimp and not clear about leaving him. She had employment in a strip club. Once I got wind of the relationship and the money dried up, she wasn't so interested in spending time with my partner. By February, he seemed serious about reconciling with me. I am terrified of getting hurt again and my life blowing up. I love this guy, but wasn't expecting this in my 50s. I feel like I'm his second choice. He's been in recovery for 15 years from substance misuse. My questions are, do you think he is a sex addict? That's a challenging question. He is unfaithful once 20 years ago on a weekend away. I just found out about that. How likely is this that could happen again? So that's a lot to unpack.
Okay, yeah, Tammy, can you condense that into one question at a time, and I'll answer one at a time?
Yeah. So with that kind of history, I mean, and I know we can't diagnose. So I think Dr. Rob can probably talk about some of the aspects in there. But her question is he a sex addict? So
right. So sex addiction is a pattern of repeated behavior over time, most often over many years. And I wrote a book, if you want to understand sex addiction, called Sex Addiction 101. And it's really like a 101. I mean, it's very simply written. There are other books I've written that are more complex on that topic. But I think, I have to say to you that, and I laughed a little bit inside, with all due respect, I don't understand being a 50-year-old woman and not expecting your husband to cheat. Because when men hit that age, it's like early 50s, we're like, oh my God, this body's doing this and I ain't there and I don't have this kind of money and I don't have that. And all of a sudden we start looking around for who's going to pay attention to me because my testosterone is draining way faster than I can tolerate. And I'm afraid I'm going to become some old man that no one, and I'll be stuck with you. So, I think many men, not every man, but many men go through that, what we would call a midlife crisis. It's better for you guys if we buy a car, if we, do something we can't afford, but sometimes we go off and have an affair with a really crazy person. And, if it was that one thing at that time in life, I think that's an opportunity for a couple to grow, to look at how they want to spend their later years, to review where they've been. And, if he's willing to work on that. And I agree with you that restoring trust, whether it's 100 times or once, is very difficult. I wrote a book about this too, called Out of the Doghouse. And Doghouse is a good way for you to begin to understand what it would mean if your husband were actually making amends to you and understood how he had hurt you. I'll just say quickly, I've been a licensed clinician for 25 years, and I've been in this field for 35 years. And I have never met a man yet who's cheated on a woman and knew how to repair it. He knows how to cheat, but he doesn't know how to repair it. And unfortunately, men just don't get the depth. And I mean, healthy men don't get the depth of pain that a woman might go through when she's betrayed, because we don't necessarily feel that. it is unfortunate but true that men can compartmentalize sexuality, and that's why there are so many strip clubs and porn shops, and because we will go off and do something sexual, and it's kind of like going to the gym. It doesn't really mean a lot to us a lot of the time, unless it's really compulsive and addictive. It is cheating, and it's not okay, but I mean, in terms of you and the marriage, we're not thinking about you. We're thinking about a good workout or getting laid, but when we go home and tell you, oh boy, that's a problem, because you see it as you should. Your whole relationship, what about the kids, what about the, so we underestimate the degree of pain you're going to experience when you are cheated on. And then we fully underestimate what it's going to take, the amount of time and work it's going to take to regain your trust. And so you might read Out of the Doghouse and just throw it at him. A lot of women do that. It sounds like he has not been able to heal, or you two have not healed what happened. And I don't know how you can go forward until you do.
Well, and I wanted to tag on because, you know, he's been in recovery from compulsive chemical misuse, but I'm wondering if there's other things, like, does he overeat? Does he, I mean, like, is there other patterns? You know, does he clearly overspent, you know, like beyond, you know, beyond the relationship? There's some other components where it feels like there's some compulsive behavior. So I'm sitting here looking at, you know, while he may have stopped the substance abuse, I'm wondering if he ever healed those underlying issues, you know, like you were just talking about in the last one, where there's, you know, the neglect, the abuse, the abandonment, some of those things, you know, if we're constantly looking to fill, hi Dozer, if we're constantly looking to fill, you know, that void, you know, then we're looking for all these other things to do that. So if he chooses to get good, you know, qualified help, you know, can he learn and grow? Absolutely. Can you guys repair this? Absolutely. But he's got, you know, a lot of work to do. So
you both do.
Yeah. Can you talk about how acting out can be triggered by positive emotions? I understand how that could happen with negative emotions and how someone might want to escape their feelings, but not sure about positive emotions.
Yeah, this is the book people ask me about writing this book. I don't want to write this book. I don't have time, but it's really about, hold on, I want to look at the question again one more time. Oh yeah, so, you know, I am an addict. And so I fully understand the desire to, whatever it is, escape, let's call it that, whether it's sex, drugs, whatever. I understand the desire to escape when I'm feeling angry or sad or uncomfortable. I want to run away. But the question is being asked here is, why would I want to run away when I get a raise, when we're having a baby, when I get a promotion? Because addicts want to celebrate and put icing on the cake with their acting out when they're celebrating, just as much as they want to run to it when they're in pain. And that's the question. And so you have to, this is a bit of a longer answer. Sorry, Tammy.
Oh, it's good.
You have to understand, what are our feelings for? And I really mean that. You know, when I burn my hand on the stove, I know why I had that feeling. It was to tell me that stoves are hot and I could get injured. And so the pain is there to say, don't do that again. So clearly, I think if you look at our emotions as information, that's telling us something, whether it's a good mood or a bad emotion, whether you're cheering or you're sad, whether you're angry or you're celebrating, you're still having an emotion. And what I think all emotions are telling us is to connect with other people. I know when I am joyful, if I run around to my friends and say, hey, guess what happened? You know, that makes me feel even more joyful and happy than if I sat alone and just thought, isn't this a nice day? If I have a horrible day, I am better served by calling friends, reaching out and telling them how I feel. It won't take away the horribleness, but it will make me feel grounded. I mean, you all know that if if something bad happens to you and you tell a friend, they're like, I'm really sorry, you know, the bad things still happen. But having people understand what you're going through, support you, that helps it a little bit. It grounds it. So this is the problem with addicts. We don't seek help. We don't understand what our emotions are. We don't know half the time we don't know what we're feeling. And even when we do know what we're feeling, we just want that feeling to go away. We don't necessarily want to find the answer to the feeling. And the answer to all feelings is connect with other people. Because that's what healthy people do. On a bad day, they call a friend. On a good day, they call a spouse. They ground their emotions. Emotional health tells you that when you're having any strong feeling, reach out to someone else. And that's what healthy people do. But addicts do the opposite. Good feeling or bad, when our needs for connection are evoked, we want to run away from those needs, or we want to get them met really quickly in a way that no one can ever hurt us and we can just shove away as quickly as possible. So we either run to some distracting experience, which doesn't really meet our needs, but it kind of distracts us. That's what we're looking for, because we don't know what to do with these feelings. And many of us grew up, as Tammy was saying earlier, in situations where we learn not to turn to people to get our needs met, because that wasn't such a good idea. We learned to take care of our emotions on our own. But no human being can take their dependencies and their needs to themselves. We are meant to pair bond. We are meant to be in community. And I'm always going to be healthier when I call a friend and say, hey, can we talk?
I 100% agree. And I hadn't thought about it, about the connecting part. For me, it was so much, I numbed out. Well, if you numb out all the time, you remove the good emotions as well as the bad emotions. So I was so uncomfortable feeling anything and couldn't even really identify things. So I struggled for quite a while with both the negative and the positive emotions, until I learned, like you were just talking about, to connect with people and try to figure out where I should just figure out what I was feeling, was challenging, but then to be able to be okay with feeling it, really tough. But I learned, and now, I can embrace both sides of it.
Let me throw another quick answer, even though it's really
Sure.
quick. There's this idea in therapy we call, and addiction therapy particularly, we talk about emotional regulation. The idea that when I'm really upset, I can calm myself down. When I'm really excited, I can, relax. I mean, that we can regulate our emotions. And this is not something that addicts do well. We have trouble calming ourselves down or rewarding ourselves for feeling good, or and so it's really best if we turn to other people. Even though other people may be able to handle the situation on their own, we're not really built that way. And so it's best for us to reach out.
Well, and this seems like a tie-into, as I gain more awareness about my addictive behaviors, I seem to be more terrified of interacting with others. Kind of a tie-in. I know that healing comes in community, but I'm afraid of how quickly my mind can return to fantasy and love addiction, even at just the slightest bit of attention from someone remotely attractive. I don't trust myself after realizing that what I once thought felt good and right in relationships was actually active love addiction. How do I navigate these fears?
Well, first of all, I think you have to forgive yourself. You're going to look, our goal in healing is not to become, your goal is not to become a nun. Okay. That's not your goal. Your goal is to enjoy your healthy fantasies, enjoy your healthy desires, but not act on them. I see people all the time that I think are attractive, or I might be interested in, or once in a while I think, oh, I could really go for that person, but I don't act on it. And so, but I do have the fantasies. We all do. Tammy's been happily married for years, and I'm sure she hears somebody speak and thinks, oh, that's an intelligent, attractive. I mean, we have these feelings, but what you do about them is everything. And related to the love addiction piece, it's very specific. And I say this a lot on in the rooms when I'm speaking on Friday night groups. A lot of women bring this up. I'm guessing this might be a woman, just a guess, but maybe not. We don't know. This is what I tell the group, male or female. You can't trust yourself when it comes to actions around sex and love. Your feelings are fine. Your interests are fine. Your fantasies are fine. It's the actions that are the problem. So what I learned to do in recovery is to reach out to other people before I acted. So if someone flirted with a meeting and they gave me their phone number and I just thought, oh my God, that person's the best thing since sliced bread, I would not call them back unless I talked to someone in recovery or my therapist or someone first, someone who knew better than me who I should date, what dating was, how I should handle these things. Because those of us who are love addicts, we spill into the emotional and we aren't able to engage our intellectual. It's like, I have seen people say, well, I know he's a heroin addict and yeah, he's still married to his wife, but his eyes, they're so sweet when he looks at me. And it's like, no, remember the heroin addict still married to his wife part? Oh yeah, did I say that? Sometimes people, love addicts, they lose touch with reality because they get so emotionally engaged. They don't see the intellectual reality of who this person is. So using other people to make your decisions about who to date and not to date, and deeply investing more in, if you're a woman, supportive female relationships, if you're a man, supportive male relationships, to help you guide your dating, to help you guide your selection of people. Let me tell you, just to those of you who are single, you'll always choose the wrong person every time. That's the way it is. But here's the good news about finding people to help direct, and I mean people in 12-step meetings, people in support groups, to help you choose the right person. Not only, I know from my experience, not only did people tell me, don't date that person again, or don't go out with that person, or that person has the wrong agenda, and I listened. But also there was a time when I had met someone who I probably needed to keep dating, but I wanted to run away. And I had those same people that sponsor that therapist say, you know what, this is someone you should be dating. I'm like, no. They've got this. They're like, no, because I will run away from the wrong person as easily as I will run toward the wrong. I will run away from the right person as easily as I'll run toward the wrong person. By the way, the person that I didn't want to date, I have now been married to for 19 years. So I'm glad I took their direction. They were right. But I never would have been right on my own.
Okay, next question. Therapy is helping me to uncover the trauma and negative core beliefs I've internalized from childhood and early adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing that my patterns of love addiction started even earlier than I realized. I'm having a hard time not feeling helpless and overwhelmed. How do I process these painful memories without adopting a victim mentality?
I don't know what a victim mentality is. So
I think it's part of the whole, I'm feeling helpless and overwhelmed, like there's, like this is all happened to me and there's no way out.
well, I mean, I'm always going to sing the same song around this, which is finding your people, the other people who've been abused in the way you have, the other people who've been harmed in the way, the other people who are struggling with what you're struggling with, and not assuming that you will know the right thing to do on your own or that you even should do it on your own will help tremendously. I also think that, if therapy is overwhelming, let me say this. I just had an email about this, Tammy, like from a therapist. A therapist was saying, oh, I'm doing trauma work with someone and we're working through their past and their history, but they just keep having sex with people and having affairs, and that's getting in the way of the therapy. And of course, my response is they're not really ready for therapy because they haven't contained their actions in terms of relationships and sex. And so in my field, and I've been in it a long time, very long time, we treat behaviors first. We believe that you have to stop dating the wrong people, having sex with the wrong people. You have to stop calling, stop flirting, stop all of that, and start building healthy relationships with people who can support you, and set a whole new chapter in your book about what dating is and what it's going to look like, and then you're ready to date. So I wouldn't worry right now about picking the wrong person. I would worry more about, where do I find my people? Where do I find a place where I really fit in? Because those are the people I need to check out my past patterns with related to current situations.
And I wanted to tag in because, you're talking about process painful memories. So you're in therapy. Hopefully you're working with a trauma specialist, because if a particular painful memory comes up, there are techniques that can be utilized to help you process through those. But I agree with Dr. Rob. It may be just slowing down therapy and just find yourself some space, accept some things. But and I thought of this too. You have resiliency because here you are. You've had stuff happen, but you have resiliency. You're here. So celebrate some of those positive things as well, possibly, instead of just feeling the overwhelmed. But I love what Dr. Rob said about finding your people. Because a lot of that stuff, you start talking to other people and you go, gosh, I like, this is just like everybody else in my little group. So you have something
Let's
else?
move on. No, it's okay. Let's move on.
Okay. A while ago, I caught my boyfriend cheating by sexting and exchanging pictures with women on Instagram who were very sexual in nature and talking about how they should finally meet up. Strippers or girls around town who sell their bodies online, blah, blah, blah. But they were messaging, we have been working on our relationship, but I'm stuck because of my self-esteem has plummeted to an all-time low. I am nothing like these girls he's been looking at and talking to, and he has never talked to me or been as sexual with me as he was with these women. I feel so low about myself that if we were out in public and see an attractive woman, or I see any of the loads of half-naked women online, I immediately want to start crying and just go home. So now no one has to see me because I'm ugly, unsexy, unlovable. Can you provide me some insight into why he would be trying to be with me?
I think there's more basic insight here which is that, and I'll say this to every spouse in the room, whether your partner is an addict or not, maybe they just had an affair, or maybe they're a porn addict, whatever the issue is, someone's decision to hold on a second, someone's decision to go drink or go use or go sex or go to the strip club, or I've had a lot of spouses say to me, we had that fight and then he went right to the strip club. God, I wish we hadn't had that fight. I wish we could figure it out. Look, you had a fight. He could have gone for a walk. He could have gone horseback riding. He could have gone swimming. I mean, his choice to go see a prostitute or have an affair or pick up the porn, that is always the person who's doing it's responsibility. And I find in this room in particular, spouses and partners are so willing to take up, well, what is my part in here? Well, your part is you've been victimized. That's your part. Somebody screwed you over and while they were saying they cared about you. Your part is to be angry and pissed and hurt. That's your part. So when spouses turn on themselves, I ask them to read a book I wrote called Prodependence. Prodependence, not codependence, prodependence. And I wrote this book because I am so tired of hearing spouses say, did I make him drink? Did I make her use? Did I do the wrong thing? No, there is nothing in the world you guys could do to make us do what we do. We were doing it before we ever met you. And by the way, we will gladly blame you because that's easier and it makes us easier to, if I can make you bad, then I'm entitled to go do what I want to do. So there's also pressure in the relationship to feel like it's your fault. Don't. You are being victimized by someone who's lying to you and cheating. And, and I don't care if it's just porn, even if it is, because, well, first of all, he's chatting with other women, which means he's probably hooking up with them. You just haven't seen that part yet, but he's going to. And the other part is, there's no respect here for your relationship, for the dignity of who you are together. I understand you feel like he's giving something away that other women get to have and you don't get to have because he thinks they're sexier than you are. I don't think that's what's going on. I think you live with a guy who's a little bit broken, who has learned to split parts of himself, like home and love over here and sex over there. And that more or less kind of qualifies him for us, whether it's our treatment program, Seeking Integrity, or it's online, or I think that he is the one with the problem. You're the one who's being victimized and taking way too much responsibility. Yes, the pain of being hurt, of being betrayed, of feeling like you don't know this person, that is yours. But why it happened and where it left you, that's not yours. That's something someone did to you. Without really thinking about how it might affect you, by the way. That's on him.
Yeah, and the one thing that struck me too, we talked about overcoming enmesh, the mother enmesh men and stuff. One of the things that I've seen with guys who are in that mother enmesh man thing is that they have a hard time being really connected with someone they love, but they can have all kinds of hot, sexy, sex over here because it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I just have this little blurb that you've written. It sounds very painful. I 100% agree with Dr. Rob. This isn't you. This is him. But, there's other factors at play. But, he hasn't shown himself to be trustworthy, and you deserve somebody that you can trust that wants to be a partner with you.
By the way, didn't she say boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay, dump this guy. May I please say, I am so sorry, but in these rooms, we have about, how many folks are here? We have 67 people here tonight. I think I had 220 in the rooms the other night. And this question often comes up. And I have to say that you ladies are way too easy on us. You just let us get away with far too much and you let us pull the wool over your eyes. Your desire for us to love you and protect you and be there for you will outweigh your loving and protecting yourselves. And here's a perfect example of this guy is tromping all over this woman. They're not even married. And she's feeling like it's her fault. Boy, is that a problem at the get-go. And they're not talking about it, which, they're not talking about it. So lots of issues on the table here.
But it isn't you, it's him. Okay, so today I'm 3 months, no contact with my qualifier. I don't know if I'm in withdrawal or if it's the stress of pandemic, perhaps both, but I feel a sense of deadness in my core. My days are a cycle of eating, exercising, journaling, reading, watching TV, joining online meetings, and sleeping. You've mentioned before that a life of recovery is often one notch above boring, and you have. How do I adjust to the absence of intensity and dissociation?
It's a great question.
It is a great question.
My answer is get creative. There's nothing wrong with taking your sense of dissociation and making art, making jewelry. You can space out into the jewelry. And listen, what did I do this weekend? Oh, Tammy, I tell you what I did this weekend?
No, I haven't. No, we haven't chatted.
So I went to the grocery store the other day, and guess they had a sale on guess what? Easter stuff because we kind of missed Easter
Oh,
this year, didn't
yeah,
we?
yeah.
So 75% off on dye egg stuff. I was like, what am I going to do this weekend? We're going to dye eggs. So my husband and my niece and I, we sat around and we were serious. We were tie-dyeing and batiking and dropping wax on them. And for a couple of hours, I went into big fantasies about how this egg should look and how that egg would look. And if I did this, I had so much fun. That's where I take my passion, is into creativity, whether it's writing or play. And it isn't intense like that was, but it's like acting out was, but it's so rewarding. And I'm so relaxed afterwards. Plus I have all these fun eggs. So anyway,
You have to
creativity is
take
a
a
great
picture.
place. Creativity is a great place to bring your focus when you're feeling like, what do I do? Just being bored.
Well, and here's the other thing I noticed is all of those things are solitary. I don't see, other than
Yes.
joining online meetings. So I missed that one. But here's one of the things. If I am all wrapped up in myself, that's a really bad thing. I am much better if I am doing something. So if it's creative or if I'm giving to someone else, I'm supporting someone else. If I'm able to do something where I'm getting out of myself, that's a much better place for me. I go, oh, that I enjoyed that connection or whatever, but I also, it's meaningful to me. Whether it's meaningful to the other person, I don't care, but it can be meaningful to me if I can do that. So I would invite you to look for ways to connect and be of service, even if it's chairing a meeting, but be of service to
Helping others.
Yeah, be a sponsor to somebody, whatever. So
May I want to do just a
Please.
little quick, what do you call these things? Commercial break. So we have a lot of free things that we give away or no cost. And I just want to let you guys know what they are on the site. Sex and relationship healing. There are half a dozen or a dozen different groups and drop-ins and webinars and stuff for couples and addicts and partners. And, we don't charge for any of this. I hope that you do drop in. I have a podcast, which is in the top 10 in the United States for relationships and sex. And it's called Sex, Love, and Addiction. And again, that's free. You can listen to the show in your car or, go to any of the podcast channels. I have a blog. I've been blogging for Psychology Today for 8 years. It's called Sex and Love in the Digital Age. We have a treatment program called Seeking Integrity. And I think we do some of the best work in the country in a very short period of time, 2 or 3 weeks, really grounding men in intimacy, relationships, and a real clarity about their problem. And we work with men who have compulsive sexual problems and those who cross those problems with drugs and alcohol. So we are a bit of a one-stop shop for free and support things. And I have lots of books. And we are really dedicated to wanting to make the issue around sex and love and brokenness just not be a secret, not be something you have to hide in the closet about. And if we spend all day long talking about broken relationships and porn, that makes me happy because you guys are learning and growing. So that's a little bit about our world. Anything you want to add, Tammy?
I'm going to put a little plug in. Dr. Rob does consultations. So if you're interested, he does a 90-minute consultation, and that can give clarity to what you're dealing with and possible next steps. You can reach out. And we've got some support meetings that are paid 25-minute and 50-minute
sessions
that are available for those that identify as an addict, a partner, or even a couple. And we've had really positive feedback from there. I'm going to ask, there's some chat going on. I'm going to ask you guys to maybe
stop it.
Yeah, like those are great. And yes,
but
yes.
It's really, so this is a place where we're just answering questions, but whatever you're chatting about, please come to one of the drop-in groups.
Yes.
Come to one of the other, where you guys will. So we have groups where you sit in a circle and you can see each other online and you all chat. This is only one version of the kinds of work we do. So definitely chat up each other, but Tammy gets distracted if you do it here.
Well, I do, because I'm trying to pay attention to that as well. So, and it's more like Brady Bunch for those of you that are of a certain age, because it's not a circle like in a meeting. It's like Brady Bunch because you're all on the grid. So, okay.
It's Hollywood Squares if you're even older.
Oh, there you go. I remember that one too. We must be of a certain age. Okay, next question. I'm a sexaholic, sober just over 5 months and working to rebuild trust in my relationship. My spouse often tells me that I'm incapable of empathizing with her. I'm working on this and currently working through your Out of the Doghouse. That's great. And exercise wants an empathetic response to her saying, I hate you and everything about you. I can't even talk to you right now. Can you tell me whether this hits the mark? It must be awful to have endured the abuse that I have put you through, gaslighting you and putting you at risk while you devoted yourself to me and then traumatizing you repeatedly through the discovery. It's no wonder that you hate me for the things I have done. If you can't look at me right now, then I can spend some time in another area of the house or head out for a while. And if you prefer that I stay and listen, then we can do that too.
I think that's a little long, but if that is the theme, or you're breaking that into pieces with conversation in between. So Tammy, can you say to me what his partner said to him, and I will respond as I would suggest he does.
I hate you and everything about you. I can't even talk to you right now.
I completely understand that. I deserve it. Listen, let me know if you want me to stay in here with you, or if you want me to go in another room. Whatever works for you is fine with me. So I would keep your interventions, your answers short, because when someone's upset, they can only hear a little teeny bit, and all she's going to hear is, would you like me here or there? And the other part is, you're absolutely right. I have ruined your life. I can only imagine how you must feel. Let me know how I can help you in here or the other room. So the two pieces are, you're absolutely validating their reality. Yes, I caused your pain. Yes, I hurt you, and I can only imagine how bad that is. And how would you like me to act next? So really, it's a surrender, because you are wanting your spouse to feel more of a sense of control.
What do you think about, because we've talked in other webinars about like can I check with you in 20 minutes or something like that? Can it be
okay.
can it be a time away thing so that we can, so it doesn't just get left? What do you think?
Tammy's talking about a timeout, and this is something couples who get into conflict, this is a cheap and easy trick, right? It's a therapy trick. We ask them to learn how to take a timeout. And what that means is, when you're not upset with each other, you practice, we're taking a timeout. And I'll tell you what that means. That means what you practice is separating for 20 minutes, half an hour, going and doing your own thing, and then coming back together. That's all you're practicing. Because when you're upset with each other and someone says, I need a timeout, that really means they want to calm themselves down. They don't want to say the thing they're about to say, or they just need some time. So let them have it. And I have seen many experiences where someone says, I need some space, and the other person comes running after them. Don't do that. The key is, the reason we run after them is we think they're not coming back. So the idea of a timeout is, we've agreed that when we get really heightened and upset, we're going to take this amount of time, and then we're going to return to the conversation. And I don't have to run after you, because I know you will return to the conversation. That's our agreement. And that can be a really good way to just get around the intensity of the bad moments.
Love that. Okay. Next question. My husband normalized porn and masturbation early in our marriage, 17 years ago. He has gone to strip clubs throughout our marriage and recently had an affair with an employee. He's supposedly currently sexually sober, but he keeps trying to convince me that porn masturbation is okay. I'm not buying it. What can I say to him every time he tries to tell me it's normal?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused, because I'm not sure that I would want to live in that situation. So my first question is, no matter how much he's normalized it, you don't feel comfortable. This isn't something that you want to go along with. So it sounds like you're almost saying, like, how can I give him a different view of what he's doing than the one he has? And, my response is, lock him out, change the key, change the locks, remove the computer so he can't find it. I mean, sometimes you just have to get people's attention. Tammy, I want you to comment on this one, because it's not a hard one to answer, but I think there are different ways to look at it.
To me, I'm like, out of the doghouse. How does he regain your trust? He had an affair. He's supposedly currently sexually sober. What is his sexual sobriety plan? What's in his inner circle? Who's his sponsor? Who's his therapist? Like, all of those questions, because to me, it's like he got to pick what, he decides is his stuff without any input from you.
I do think a lot of us bully you guys. We really do. We bully you into, why are you nagging at me? And when are you going to get off my back? And then you start to think, well, maybe I'm not being very nice, when the truth is your partner's not being very nice to you. And we deflect by putting it back on you. That's what we do. Don't take it.
Love that. Okay. Next question. Hello, my wife and I went through some trouble 10 years ago where I was obsessively looking at porn sites and got caught. We were doing well for a while, but for some reason this year I began to look at the sites again. Then I had performance issues this past week and fell into obsessively viewing porn again, even while in public places while my wife caught me. What causes such a quick escalation of obsession with viewing porn?
I don't know. And in the sense that I like the fact that you think something might have caused it. And it could be, I don't know if somebody died last week or, first of all, and we're all in very difficult circumstances in the day to day. So, but I guess what I want to say is many, many times someone who works with me will say, I just want to know why. The answer why seems so important. Why do I do this? Why did I do it that time? How, and I don't think that's the right question. I think the question is, how can I not do this again? How can I get more support? How can I work this out with my partner? It's more about how do we move forward. So I'm less concerned with what made it happen. It may be a mystery to you. It may always be a mystery to you. But what I want you to know is next time you feel like doing this, getting on and looking at the porn or whatever it is, what are you going to do? What have you learned to do differently? And here's maybe the better point, is that I don't think addicts, and Tammy might or might not agree, I don't think that we heal by not doing things. I think it's a start, not drinking, not gambling, but that's not really the healing part. That's just stopping the biggest problems. Healing is about growing to have new ways of coping with difficult circumstances. And even if you feel like going for that drink or going to that porn, you do something else because you've learned to and you've practiced it. So my question to you is less, why did this happen? And more, what are you putting in place? And how are you making sure it doesn't happen again? And then if you want to go to therapy and explore why, feel free. Pay somebody all you want. But I just want to make sure you don't do it again.
Yeah, I was just telling somebody earlier today is like, even if you had no, like the whys, maybe it'll give you a little glimmer, but there is stuff that, just a couple of years ago came up that I realized was part of, the underlying issues for me. I could not have dealt with that early on. And I'm, there could be more stuff that comes up in, this year or next year. I don't know, but if, it isn't about just, well, if I know and understand,
right.
then I'm going to be fixed.
Because you already know, that at a certain point your coping fails and you end up in this place. That's enough to know that you need to build your coping skills and get more support and then figure out what happened.
Yeah. Hi, thanks for your service. I would like to hear the differences between male and female sex addicts, please, in a way their addiction presents, the way that they typically act out, etc. I'm a recovering sex addict. This is a female in a therapy with a CSAT for 2 years since the diagnosis and a year and a half in S program. I am not a love addict. I'm sorry. I am not a love addict, intimacy avoidant, if anything.
I like you. You're like me. You don't want to get to know anyone. You just want to have sex. I get that completely. So most women, not all, but many, many women who do things like go to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous are struggling with more having sex with the wrong people, having sex for the wrong reasons, having sex to make people stay, having sex to have them be closer to them. They're using sex more as an emotional tool. And most of the women that I work with, but not all, struggle more with seeking the wrong people and emotionally connecting deeply in ways that don't serve them with the wrong people. So we have bad pickers. They get love addicted or involved with the wrong person, or they lead with sex and they get involved with the wrong person. Those tend to be the typical women's issues, whereas men tend to be more casually sexual. However, there is a category for you of women who do it just like men do. And unfortunately, I think I believe there's probably a lot of trauma there, a lot of abuse there, because for a woman to lose, so healthy women in general, we actually have research on this. When healthy women, let's say, look at porn and they get aroused and you ask a woman, are you excited? She'll say, well, a little, but I'm more thinking about, would we get along? Because women, when you get sexually aroused, healthy women immediately start thinking about the emotional connection. That's how women operate. This is why we like to give you drinks. Men like, have a couple of drinks. You're not thinking about whether we're nice anymore. You just want to say, in other words, that women have an inner detective that kind of is checking out not only bodies like men do, but character, kindness, and this makes sense because any woman who went off with some guy in the past, you might have gotten raped or abused. You know, women are vulnerable. So you should be thinking about are we safe for you to go have sex with? But women who've been abused in their past in various ways often lose that moment of, is this a kind person? They're so sexualized, or they've been abused in ways that they move into the sex a lot like men do. Hey, this looks like fun, let's just have some, without protecting themselves emotionally. So I think the biggest difference is that most female sex acts, but not all, are really seeking an emotional connection, and the sex is secondary. But if you're like me, the sex is primary. You could give a crap about the emotional connection. You just want to use the person to feel better about yourself because they're aroused by you and they want to have sex with you, and that makes you feel important and special. I get that. But what's the actual question here? I'm sorry, I missed the question.
It was.
I got to all the answers.
What's the difference between the male and female sex addicts? And then it said,
Not much.
Not much.
Well, the women tend to act out more in problem relationships. They tend to have sexual problems around relationships, whereas men tend to lead with just the sex. But there is a category of women, like this woman, who really has sex with, just like men do, without a thought, but they tend to have more of a history of abuse.
So, okay,
But let me say something more, or I'll say something more.
Okay.
I think it's really important for that woman to identify herself and not be shameful about it. I think when you raise your hand in a meeting, you have to say, you know what, I'm a sex addict, and I have sex just like guys do. Because as a woman, people are going to assume, oh, she's having affairs, she's this or that. I think it's good for you to really get in there. And in fact, if you're a straight woman, you might pick a gay man as a sponsor, because we're out there having a lot of casual sex, some of us, and we're not going to hook up with you, but we can help guide you into change. And for you, that might have a man who does these issues be your sponsor, might not be a bad thing as long as he's not going to have sex with you, because you're having sex more like we do than women do. But hey, you earned your place here. We all do the similar thing for similar reasons.
Thank you. And I've heard that before with gay guy sponsors for female, because
I had a female sponsor.
And unfortunately there aren't as many females, that are, getting in recovery or safe to go to meetings or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense. So.
But I do want to say something about that, Tammy. Having gone to meetings in person for so many years, in the church basement, in the school, wherever the meeting was, I've realized that so many women are online. Because it seems like, and especially I see this in other places we go, because like this room in Sex and Relationship Healing seems to be a lot more about relationships. But when I'm in the rooms on Friday nights, a lot more about single people. And women are asking these questions all the time. And I find, and then I think this is true, as a woman, I think I wouldn't feel entirely comfortable walking into a strange church basement at night with a room full of half men to talk about sex. Like, I don't know, but going online seems to be, and women like online communication, you're more social in that way. So I think going to online environments, meetings as much as you can will really be helpful. And I would suggest you do it as quickly as you can.
Well, and I think also that for a female, if you're one or two women that are in a meeting, there's probably a lot of guys that are like, ooh, I have to stay away. So it's
from her, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, really. So like, I think women feel extra ostracized in meeting spaces because of, they're different and they're also the problem, on some level. So I think I love those solutions. So, okay. Next question. Sex addict since my teens, acted out for the first 19 years of my marriage, currently in recovery. I'm okay with sobriety. I don't want to act out, don't want to go back to lying or living a double life, but struggling with recovery. Every time you, Dr. Rob, or my wife say something that attributes like 30 or 40 years of my thoughts and feelings to my addiction, I feel dehumanized. In other words, when someone says, oh, all addicts think fill in the blank, or all addicts say fill in the blank, those statements often feel either untrue when applied to me or just like a complete rejection and denial of my experiences and emotions. Just because all addicts say that their wives do X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that my wife does.
I have an answer already.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It says, how do I approach recovery when I feel like the type of recovery
that to get over yourself. You're just not that special. And we all have similar responses. We all have similar issues. And, if it doesn't fit, let go of it. But it isn't like a huge deal. And I am concerned for you that you're looking at, I don't like when they describe me this way. And why don't you look for the things you have in common with people and where you're all struggling? I can sit in a room of any people and tell you all the differences and why I don't have anything in common with them and I shouldn't be with them. But that's not recovery. Recovery is looking for my similarities. How do I relate to these people? So maybe, we do have a saying, take what you like and leave the rest. So rather than obsessing about this, I would do that. Oh, I relate to that. Maybe I'm not that kind of an addict, so I don't relate to that. But I will put a word on what you described, and I don't know if I have, it's kind of narcissistic to be so personally reactive to something that really has nothing to do with you. We're just saying addicts do this. If you take that personally, that concerns me about you and how personally you might take things in general that are not really stated about you. And I relate to this because I take a lot of things personally.
Great answer. I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay.
Tammy does too.
Oh, I actually adore being able to label something as addiction and typical, because it makes so much sense to me. Like, it made it not be, I'm just crazy. It made it be, this is my disease and this is pretty common. And like all the things that I thought I was so unique and so horrible about and everything else. And it was like, no, you're just a typical, female addict, and gosh, it just didn't, it made it way more normalized. And I 100% do what you do, Dr. Robin, look for all those similarities. And it's typical, even if the situation doesn't align, the emotions do. I felt the guilt, I felt the shame, I felt the sad, whatever, I felt the, whatever. And that helped.
I wanted to say something about why I feel so strongly about using the word addiction related to sex and porn, because some people really object to that. And they say, couldn't you use words like compulsivity or what's another word? Obsessive and I want you to really know, every one of you, how many folks are here now? 67, why I use the word addiction, why it's so important to me. You must understand two things. Number one, those of us who have these issues, we really want to get better, and we really want to find the person who's going to fix our problem. This is kind of a part of the challenge. And we want to find the right therapist who has just the right answer. But that's kind of how we do our addiction. It's like, let's find the right person who's going to make me feel all better, at least for 5 minutes. And what I love about the process of 12-step recovery or addiction recovery is that no single person is what leads you to healing. It's the group. It's multiple people. It's spending time in all different, going out for coffee, going to meetings, meeting with people. It's all kinds of situations that lead to recovery. So one of the reasons I love the word addiction is because one of the main reasons I love the word addiction is another one is you have a lifelong place to go for healing. And you don't have to pay a dime, because how much do you think I or any therapist can really offer you after a year? I mean, maybe, sure, if you want a lifelong analysis, I was in therapy for 25 years. I learned a lot and don't regret a second of it. However, there are certain things that a therapist really isn't made for. And I think the kind of accountability and fellowship and relationships you build in addiction treatment cannot be found in therapy. And I also believe that when you've paid that however many thousands of dollars, insurance payments, whatever, to the therapist, you're still going to have the problem. It's not like Tammy stopped being an alcoholic because she got sober. She still probably wants to drink once in a while. Well, I would like to act out once in a while. And if I did or was really struggling, I don't want to go back to paying for therapy. I want to go to just get a restart with a bunch of people who can help me. And I can go to addiction programs with not a penny in my pocket. And people will help me for nothing. And they will help me for a lot. They'll just go sit on my couch or invite me to stay at their house if that's what it takes for me to be sober, because that's their commitment. And there is no other environment that I know of. And it's worth using the word addiction to have claim on such a wonderful place to go for healing for the rest of your life for free. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
There's a continuation of this. I'm not sure I want to fundamentally change my thoughts and emotions around sex, relationships, and overall mental health. So to me, that
answers that question.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like somebody that doesn't really want to change.
Can I say something about that? Do you mind?
Please do.
So I had one of these the other night on one of the calls. Someone was like, I'm really thinking about changing, but I'm not really sure. I kind of like the sex, but maybe it's not good for me. And I was just like, go back out there and have some more. And I didn't say it quite like that, but I want you guys to understand something. And I'm going to give you numbers, okay? I've probably treated 1,000 individuals or couples over the last 25 years. And of those 1,000 people who had a problem, I can count on these two hands, maybe just one, the number who came into a treatment, a program like Seeking Integrity, or did this work with us because they felt badly about what they've done. That's 5 out of 1,000. All 995 other people came to me because Their marriage was falling apart. They were going to lose their partner. They were going to lose a job. They'd been arrested. They got a disease. The crisis of their behavior was so great that they were willing to do whatever it took to get better. They were willing to go to meetings they didn't want to, and paying for therapies they didn't want to, just to stop. They were willing to do anything to save their marriage or whatever it is. So when I run into someone who's like, well, but the truth is I'm not really sure that I want to invest in this. Well, that answers all the questions, because nobody wants to invest in all of this. We only invest in change because we have to, because we want to save things that are important and we want to grow. So if you're reasonably content with what you're doing, except maybe you just feel a little ashamed afterwards, you're not ready for us. You're not ready to do this work. And with all due respect, you probably need to go out there and do enough of, look, when I was out there having sex or when Tammy was drinking, it was fun in the beginning. It was fun until it wasn't fun anymore. And then it was so not fun that both of us had to get help. I would say that while it's still working, you're probably not that motivated to get help. But when you're about to lose something really important to you, give us a call.
Well, yeah. My only concern is this person has a wife. So you're probably going to lose your marriage and whatever.
Well,
else,
we
but
haven't
go
know
back out there.
what the wife knows. I mean,
Yeah, true.
You know, this is a longer conversation.
Yes.
But what, to Tammy's point, and I want to make it, the reason I brought up maybe your spouse doesn't know is because if your spouse does know, look, they're often you spouses, you're often the driver in the beginning of us getting help. I didn't make the distinction, but I don't seek help, as I still do, because I'm in trouble. Now I seek help because I want to grow. I want the support. I like this life I've created for myself. But in the beginning, I just did all this stuff because I had to, because if I didn't, bad things were going to happen. And that's off. And so your wife clearly has not gotten to a point where she has stood up to you and said no more. And if she did, which I would advise her to do if I were talking to her or she were here, that might motivate you in ways that you haven't been so far.
Thank you. So do you have time
sure.
for one more, or do you want to?
Let's do one more. Just
okay.
one more.
Okay. So this one is, I'm an alcoholic with 2 years of recovery and a sometimes porn addict, also in recovery. I have filters on my electronics and carry a call and text only phone. I have had a brief 6-week affair 2 years ago when I acted out on years of stored up resentments and bitterness over a variety of issues in my marriage. After discovery, we went to 2 different counselors.
Wait, Tammy, I'm reading this too. This is way too long. Let me see if we can get to the bottom.
Go to the bottom. My wife is still struggling, triggered heavily daily, resulting in chronic conflict and chaos in our lives. Love her deeply.
Okay.
How can I help her? I'm getting resentful again about the way she treats me and her frequent out of control outbursts. Any advice?
Well, I think this is it's both a timing and an action thing. If I am in a marriage and I have hurt my marriage and I get that I'm in the doghouse, and so I'm willing to, go to the meetings, go to the therapy, do whatever I need to do, at a certain point, I should be able to be beginning to heal trust. I give this equation out a lot. Trust is reliable, honest behavior over time. Reliable, honest behaviors over time. It's an equation. So it takes maybe up to a year, not 6 months, not 3 months, but up to a year for you to just be a decent guy and not screw up before your spouse might begin to look at you and say, okay, I might be interested. So if you read Doghouse, you already know that. It can be up to a year. But around a year, and this is really provided that you, the addict, are doing everything they need to do. You're not giving your spouse reasons to worry or to fear. You are involved in your family. You are being non-defensive. You're getting support. You're doing your job, and you really think you are. Then at a certain point, if your spouse's level of upset doesn't change, a year in, 8 months, a year, nothing's changed, then at some point I will say to a spouse, I'll say to them, I don't know if you can, but I can say to them, I wonder if your anger at a certain point will become counterproductive. Because at a certain point, this man or woman that you're with, they're going to start to feel good about themselves. They're going to start to feel like they are worthy of asking to get their needs met, that they're worthy of attention, because they're being a stand-up person. And at that point, if you can't begin to let some of your anger down, then you're pushing them away. And you need to go get some help dealing with your anger. Not that there's any reason you shouldn't have it, but if it's so escalated and the person's doing a good job, what reason do they have to stay or keep doing a good job for you if you're still rejecting and furious? And I'm not saying in 3 months, I'm not saying if the person's still, but I'm saying if all things are aligned, partners should begin to calm down around 8 months to a year. And if they're not, and the person's really doing a good job in recovery, there might be more to look at.
And I wanted to tag on because we went to two different counselors. So I'm a little bit questioning if it was just couples therapy and there wasn't support for your partner, because, you know, we talk often in these forums that there is really a need for each of you to have your separate support, to be able to have that place to vent, you know, and then to be able to work on the relationship differently. And then Dr. Rob talked earlier about the timeout. And so even just the de-escalation, there's a bunch of tools you can use, but you know, I was wondering if there's, you know, if she's had the level of trauma that, you know, has been problematic for her, really supported and addressed.
Yeah, I want to support you, Tammy, because I think what you're saying is, and we should stop with this, there's a process. This is not rocket science. If you have been doing this kind of this and that, there's a process where you see a certain therapist, a therapist is trained, the two of you do a certain kind of work. Think of it this way. If you had migraines, you wouldn't see a cancer specialist. You'd go to someone who deals with your head. So there are specialists who deal with infidelity and cheating and addiction. And I would suggest that you as a couple go see those people and each get yourself some support, because it doesn't sound like, as Tammy said, what you've landed on has really been what you need. And yes, your partner's going to be stuck. Partners are stuck. That's the nature of them, because they're in so much pain, they don't know which way to turn.
Yeah.
Tammy, thanks for this time tonight. I hope everyone got their needs met.
Thanks to all of you. Come back again next week. Bye.
And I'll be on In the Rooms Friday at 6 p.m. California time. That's a site where you can find lots of 12-step meetings, and I'll be there too.
And Super Saturday Recovery Summit is coming up.
And we'll talk about that on Friday. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.